Yeah. So I was having some feelings while I was reading this book. I got it in the train station charity donation thing. I was feeling a little bit kind of sad and burnt out shortly before I got signed off with stress. And I thought this is going to be a nice, comforting read. And it wasn't. And I couldn't work out why. And as I typically do, I thought, well, clearly I'm just reading it wrong. It's a collection of stories. It was written sort of early pandemic times, or mid. In the intro, it references Captain Tom, so after his fundraising efforts, but still kind of quite early 2020, 2021 probably. And like the sales of it went to support it. And it's just a bunch of stories of people talking about, like, some of them are just so boring. Like, one time I hurt my leg and I went into A&E and they sewed me up. My kid fell off a swing. No, everyone was fine. But like the Joe Brand thing in here is great because it's all celebrities talking about their experiences of the NHS and how great it is, and it's got this really heavy-handed messaging in it about like, and the NHS needs to be free, and everyone that works here is a hero. And I'm wondering, why is this like, this should be nice, this should feel like a compliment. Why does it feel wrong? And I worked it out. So we had this rhetoric of NHS heroes that really came out through the pandemic, and we've got our little heroes that we're comparing to, and I think this book does a little illustration of it, that we're Batman and we're Spider-Man. Nice little Marvel and DC representation, I think that. And they're in the bin, and we've got a nurse up here flying, and like no particular shade to anyone here aside from writing some shit poetry and heavy-handed political messaging into their boring stories about falling off swings and things, although there are some quite funny stories about like parents falling over doing really dumb things to save bugs. They were all fine, but you know, it was quite funny to read kind of post it. And like there are some stories in there about things being like individual workers and individual staff members and those individual experiences. And I think that is the part that's powerful. I'm an NHS worker. I've worked in public services pretty much since I've left uni, like having done an undergrad. So that's like a decade now. I've been in public services. And it is lovely when you have a really amazing moment with a patient. Every now, like you carry it in your head, and other colleagues say this, of like people decades later going like, that one patient said that I saved their life, or that I had such a big impact, and they came back and said thank you and it was amazing. They sent me a Christmas card. I saw the child of the person whose life I saved when they came back in, and you do get those amazing moments. They're occasional, but they are amazing. And as a patient as well, kind of looking at it from the other side, the woman that had an acid attack and had to be in hospital for ages to have her face rebuilt, a 15-year-old girl having heart surgery and having a nurse just sit with her while she cried for half an hour. Genuinely moving, genuinely lovely, but most people haven't had those big experiences because they're big. And even as a member of staff, like the most people you help make better, and they go like, yeah, this person was kind of nice. Much in the same way as your person that makes your coffee is hopefully kind of nice, does a good job, and you don't really think about them that much. And that's kind of what it's like if you've kind of gone in and had some minor procedures done and just been like, oh yeah, no, they were nice, or like, really appreciate that they took the time to sit with me because I was scared. And you know, you get those positive experiences. But the issue is, the NHS is massive, public services is massive, and while everything is generally staffed with people who do feel called towards the profession, that do want to help people, and who do have a lot of traits around being really kind of self-sacrificing and really wanting you to be well, and occasionally going really above and beyond, it's also full of dickheads. It's a massive organisation. It hires loads and loads of people, and that includes, like, I've had to make sexual harassment complaints against colleagues. I experienced biphobia. I experienced homophobia. I experienced general sexism. I reported a group of nurses for taking the piss out of a patient with dementia. It was a stressful situation. They were being unprofessional. Like, I had to report them. Well, I didn't have to, but I felt it was the right thing at the time to report them, and I stick with that decision. Because we're people. And I know that's all like, we're just people. We're not perfect, which is lovely. And I was trying to work out if all of this like hero rhetoric that was coming by was just some sort of feeling of imposter syndrome. Is it just because I work in mental health? The pandemic kicked off and I wasn't in a hospital ward, I wasn't in the ICU, I didn't ventilate a patient, I was sat in my house talking to people on the phone. I mean, mostly talking to like homeless people that were having mental health crises and like trying to, keep them okay and make them feel better, which for the most part I did. And one of them had this was so amazing and you've changed my life. And I hold that and it was really nice. And most other people were like, it's been good talking to you. I feel a bit better and, I'm better on top of my anxiety. And such things like that. And thinking, maybe it's just imposter syndrome. I feel like I shouldn't be entitled to all of the extra NHS free coffee and things like that because I've not been in sort of on the physical health side and we feel bad about it within mental health that we're all just imposters and we're not as good as the physical health guys, the real doctors, the real healthcare workers. But it's not me. It's you. No, it's this rhetoric of being a hero because it's dehumanizing, and that's a weird thing to think of because normally if you say the word dehumanizing, it's always meaning like less than human. But I suppose in some ways it's almost like being greater than human, like being put on a pedestal. It's that feeling. So it's not dehumanising as in you are scum, like anyone that works for the NHS is a terrible cretin that just wants to watch people suffer. That's why you're in the hospital, because people are always scared when they're in the hospital and you just love it and you want to sit there and like, all of the supervillains in our situation all have doctorates and they're the highly qualified people. Maybe it's that. But it's dehumanising in the sense of like, what happens when a hero has a bad day? Heroes don't get bad days. And they don't get breaks. And they don't get paid. And you don't level criticism against heroes who are doing heroic acts because the heroes, they're the good guys. They're the paladins. They're the lawful good guys. They're the, Captain America, and we're just going to punch Hitler rather than like focusing on dismantling systemic anti-Semitism and the structures that might, put people in power. We're just we're gonna come in, we're gonna punch Hitler, and we're gonna work for all of the hours with no breaks and with no additional pay. Because I think it really takes away from all of the other issues like that, like the fact that the NHS has been massively understaffed for freaking ages, and so have all public services. Like, I did a brief stint with child protection services, and regularly staff were staying until 6 o'clock at night just because the work needed to be done. They were massively overstaffed. People were burning out. It's creating this really horrible burnout cycle. And you put the pressure then onto yourself as an NHS worker. So this thing of being a compliment, I'm not a hero because I'm working hard or because I care about my patients or because I want people to have good outcomes. I've suddenly got this pressure that everybody that I see, I have to make them all the way better, and I have to do something life-changing. And because I'm a hero, that becomes, and it's part of my identity rather than my actions. And so then, there's just this enormous pressure that I'm going to be always good no matter what, because that's just who I am, and everything that I'm going to do is going to be from a place of pure altruism. I have no other interests aside because, it's not like Batman doing anything else other than working, you know. No one's having a good time outside of this. No, what music do Batman and Spider-Man like? We don't know because they don't have any time to go and listen to any because they're too busy Batmaning and Spider-Maning and then, you know, maintaining their own like other identities. So like there's no space for that like additional humanity of being a slightly messed up person like we all are. So I really want to challenge the times when we are doing this NHS our heroes rhetoric. What are you saying? And what are you also taking away from the people that you're trying to compliment? Like, I really appreciate the work that the people have done in this ward. This has personally impacted me. I imagine that this work is incredibly difficult, and I appreciate the work that's had to go into doing that in a job that is difficult, which I know I would struggle with. But like all jobs have bits you struggle with. I don't know. I feel like with my partner and I, my partner works at IT, and I have worked in IT and I do fine at it, and it is really boring. It does not suit me. I could not work in IT. That doesn't mean that working in IT as a career is in some way heroic or amazing, because I couldn't cope with idiots. I've forgotten my password and I can't remember how to connect to the Wi-Fi, and I just want to exist as one of those idiots, which I absolutely am. Working in IT did not save me, and they still mess up in exactly the same ways as everyone else does. It just that's just a bad fit for me, but the NHS work that I've been doing has been a good fit for me. The public the public sector work that I've been doing has been a good fit for me. It's not a good fit for everyone, but it doesn't mean that I'm some sort of special or super magical person just because my academic interests and abilities have lined up particularly to go to that set of skills, and that my interests have just collided with that. I think there is like there's a type of person that gets called to it, but I think there's also a type of person that gets called to being a musician, and there's a type of person that gets called to doing community projects, and there's a type of person that gets called to being an accountant, and a kind of person that gets called to working in garden centres. And it doesn't necessarily mean that anyone's better or worse than anyone else. It's just like, I try and do good things. I think we can maybe argue that like horrible corporate bankers are doing things for like generally bad reasons, or things that are generally more harmful than like nurses and doctors and therapists and stuff, but it's not heroic, it's just different. And and I think it goes in as part of that as well. Like, I think everyone with the clapping back in like early 2020, and we had that first clap where everyone went outside and went out on their balconies or in their gardens or whatever, and everyone clapped at Thursday at 8:00, and it was emotional. It was amazing to think that in a way where people felt so scared and isolated and afraid, that they went like, I'm so glad someone's doing something about this, because I feel so powerless. Because we all felt so powerless, and just being like, thank you to anybody that is doing anything, because some people suddenly were really needed. And you know what, if there was a massive cyber attack, we'd all really need the IT guys, and that they would be the people that would be working to keep us safe. They would be our heroes, you know. And it was just so nice to be like, thank you for what you're doing. Like, your skills, we really need you right now. Thank you for being there. We understand that this is really, really hard, and we know that you need this. Because it felt emotional. It felt like it was for NHS workers and for people that were working. And then, like, there was a point where, like, it just started feeling, like, tacky and whatever. And I think part of that was like, well, we all thought it was just going to last for kind of 3 weeks back to the halcyon days of March 2020. And, you know, so we thought, yeah, can do this for 3 weeks. We'll just do 3 weeks in a row. That'll be a nice little confidence boost, little uptick in the week, keep the time ready. But, then it was going on for months and months and months and years and stuff. And there was just the point where I was like, why are we doing this? We're just doing it as, for the sake of it, because, we've decided that we're going to do it. It's almost become like a tradition. It's something to do. And it stopped being that, because it was just that, well done, keep going, yeah, well done, you're doing great. And it lost all of its impact and all of its appeal. And I think that dehumanising, that thing about NHS workers are heroes, I think it comes from the same thing. And yeah, one really great emotional clap was amazing. Nothing like it I've ever seen in my life that I can remember. And patients giving you amazing testimony about how you've saved their life, or you've had a massive, really positive impact on them, or that it was just amazing to have you there while they were going through this really horrible, distressing time. Amazing. But they're rare and they're precious. And I think we've fallen into this thing of just we're also NHS workers, are also perfect, they're our heroes, and so we do not need to worry about them because they are busy existing in this sphere of being perfect, while we're all suffering from terrible self-esteem, depression and burnout. Yeah. So have a bit of a think about that. The next time you see something to do with NHS workers being heroes, are they a hero? Is every person that you see when you go into the work, when you go into any kind of NHS environment, are they all heroes? Is your GP receptionist a hero? Is the person that misdiagnosed you a hero? Or are they just a person doing their best with a particular set of education and skills in a system which is broken? Have a think about it, and I think we do need to be challenging this rhetoric. Not heroes. Some of us are dickheads. But I don't want to leave you on a completely hopeless note. Know that, you can still have a very wonderful and positive view of the NHS. Most people in the NHS are good and nice, but I think most people are good. Remember, you can always fit a lot of rubles in a dead rat. Catch you next time.